While there's been some pretty significant noise coming out of Wall Street lately. Yeah, it's interesting because the business community has generally been pretty happy with things like lower taxes and, deregulation. But there's definitely a shift happening. Now you've got some really big names starting to speak out about these tariffs, who's supposed to go into effect this Wednesday, actually. And they're worried about what it could do to the economy. And it seems like the recent market downturn is a big reason why they're finally speaking up. If you find this information helpful, please consider liking and subscribing. So let's start with Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase. So in his yearly letter to shareholders, he was pretty blunt. I mean, he straight up warned that these tariffs could make prices go up and slow down economic growth. And you even heard America's position globally. What really stood out to me was how he talked about the cumulative effect of all of this. Like how these negative things could just keep building up over time and then become almost impossible to undo. He even said it's like one large additional straw on the camel's back, at least in the short term. Now, JP Morgan's chief economist had actually suggested that a recession might be on the horizon this year. But Dimon himself said that whether the tariffs will actually cause one is still up in the air. He does think growth will slow down, though. But what seems to worry him the most is the potential damage to America's long-term economic relationships. And this is actually a bigger concern than he's expressed before. He used to just talk about the uncertainty around trade policy, but now he's talking about real damage. So Goldman Sachs is another big player that's getting more and more worried. Their economists have actually raised the chances of a recession happening. They bumped it up from 35% to 45%. And they say it's because of a few things. One is that financial conditions are tightening up, meaning it's getting harder and more expensive for businesses and people to borrow money. Another is that foreign consumers might start boycotting American goods. And then there's the ongoing uncertainty around policy, which they think is making companies less likely to invest. Goldman Sachs also came right out and said that higher tariffs will absolutely lead to slower economic growth and more inflation, which means your money won't go as far. They even said that if most or all of the tariffs planned for April might actually happen, it would essentially raise the overall tariff rate by about 20 percentage points. And their analysis says they'd probably be predicting a U.S. recession if that happens. So how has the administration responded to all this? Well, a reporter asked about how much pain the market could handle, and the president reportedly called the question stupid. He said he doesn't let the economy go down, but sometimes he has to take medicine to fix something. He also said he doesn't think inflation will be a big deal or back to school shopping later this year. And he's still saying that U.S. trading partners haven't been fair to American companies, and that these tariffs are a way to force more businesses to make their products in the United States. Now, let's switch gears for a second and talk about Bill Ackman. He's a billionaire hedge fund manager behind Pershing Square Capital Management. He actually used to support the president, but his recent comments on X have been really strong. He basically said that these tariffs are an economic nuclear war on every country in the world. Wow, that's some pretty serious language. His big worry is that this will make people spend less and cause investments to dry up. And he thinks small and medium-sized businesses will be hit the hardest. Ackman's view is that business is a confidence game. And he says the president is losing the trust of business leaders around the world. His solution is a 90-day timeout for negotiations to try to fix what he sees as unfair tariffs. He believes this could lead to trillions of dollars in new investments. Ackman also said that his own ability to work the market would be hurt if things keep going downhill. He called the new tariffs massive and disproportionate. And he said this is not what we voted for. His overall outlook is pretty grim. He warned about self-induced economic nuclear winter, and even said people should start hunkering down. He also questioned whether CEOs and boards would feel comfortable making big long-term commitments in the middle of this economic nuclear war. And he's got a point. If things are really this uncertain, who's going to want to take big risks? So how has the market been reacting to all this? Well, it's been a roller coaster. Stocks have been swinging wildly for 3 days straight. The S&P 500 is down, and it's getting close to what they call a bear market, which means it's dropped more than 20% from its recent highs. And an NASDAQ and Dow Jones Industrial Average have seen similar dips. What's interesting is that even assets that are usually considered safe havens, like the US dollar and gold, have been selling off. There was a short-lived market rally after a false report that the tariffs might be paused, which just goes to show how desperate people are for some good news. Even Larry Summers, who used to be Treasury Secretary, said that this is pretty unprecedented. He pointed out that the market disruption is directly tied to the president's actions, and he's not the only one who's spoken out. Stanley Druckenmiller, a former hedge fund executive, has said he's against any tariffs over 10%. Clifford Asness, who runs AQR Capital Management and has been a Republican donor for a long time, has criticized other Republicans who are defending these policies. And Ken Fisher, the founder of Fisher Investments, didn't hold back at all. He called the tariff plans stupid, wrong, arrogantly extreme, ignorant trade-wise, and addressing a non-problem with misguided tools. Wow, that's a mouthful. But he does think that the market is overreacting a bit. He believes that the fear is bigger than the actual problem and that it will eventually fade. Elon Musk has also weighed in. He said he hopes for a zero tariff situation between Europe and the US, and he's even suggested a free trade zone that includes Europe and North America. Simon McAdam from Capital Economics made a good point. He said businesses are are likely to hold off on investments because of all that sheer uncertainty, which makes sense. Why would you put money into something when you don't know what the rules are going to be tomorrow? What are we hearing from the administration? Well, Kevin Hassett, who was then the National Economic Council Director, said Bill Ackman's comments were completely irresponsible. He called for everyone to tone down the rhetoric. Other administration officials have admitted that a lot of countries are interested in new trade deals, but they also said that those negotiations could take a long time. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick both said that it won't happen overnight. And the president has said he's willing to put even more tariffs on China if they don't back down from their retaliatory measures. So the big picture here is that a lot of people are worried. They're saying that these higher tariffs are going to lead to slower economic growth and more inflation, which could very well push us into a recession, especially with tighter financial conditions, potential boycotts from other countries, and the possibility of retaliation. So we've covered a lot of ground today, and it's clear that this is a really complicated situation. There are a lot of potential consequences, both for the economy and for international relations. And honestly, it's hard to say exactly how things will play out, but hopefully this has given you a better understanding of the key issues and the different perspectives involved. If you found this insightful, please like and subscribe for more in-depth discussions. We'll be back soon with another look at the forces shaping our world. Until then, thanks for listening.